Hi, I'm Dax Gordine, creator of Forest Folk, the comic, and you're listening to True North Country Comics podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. If you want to drop me a line, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. On this episode, I chat with Dax Gordine about his new Marvel project, R4ID KLAATU, Further Tales of Forest Folk, and more. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. It's also available on the True North Country Comics channel on YouTube. I invite you to like and subscribe. Based in Ontario, Dax is a professional artist with jobs ranging from illustrating webcomics and graphic novels to classical film animation, including Osmosis Jones, 8 Crazy Nights, and Looney Tunes Back in Action, and computer animation for video games, including Namco High. He's also the creator of the ongoing weekly webcomic Forest Folk, now collected in trade paperback. It follows the tales of Filbert the Fox and Thomas the Sketching Elf, and has been described as the Sunday funnies crashing headlong into Looney Tunes. And so, without further ado, here's my chat with Dax Gordine about his new Marvel project, R4ID KLAATU, Further Tales of Forest Folk, and more. So, Dax Gordine, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Thanks, John. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, appreciate your time. Before we get started, wanted to ask, what's on your bedside reading table? What are you reading today?
It's funny you should mention that. I don't read a whole lot. I think last time you asked me this question, I had a 0 for you, but I'm actually got right next to me right now is Scotty Young's I Hate Fairyland book 1.
Okay.
So I bought both of his books online and made an investment there because I just love this work and I wanted a nice physical copy. So I rarely pick up stuff, but I definitely picked this one up. So I've been looking through this. So
does that mean that, like, I'm looking around my office and I've got trade paperbacks all over the place? Are you trying to make sure you've got a digital library for most of your stuff, or is it a little bit of mix?
Honestly, I don't do a lot of. I mean, I do have like Comixology account or whatever like that I used to. If I ever need reference or whatever that I'll get it on that. But I generally don't have a lot of space for books, so
right. Yeah.
I just keep the bare minimum. Like I have my Calvin and Hobbes collection, which is I probably brought up on the last podcast I did with you, and then some Arda books, and that's pretty much it. So
space is a premium these days, and as much as I'd like to get like every book on the planet,
I know,
time runs out. Space, so I've got to like put stuff aside and go, well, maybe I should put that. And in fact, I put Sandlot Peanuts. It was a Charles Schulz collection.
Cool.
Out in the garage because I thought, gee whiz, I don't need that around here. But then I got on a Peanuts kick.
Nice.
And I said, I remember that Sandlot. Where did it go? And sure enough, there it was. So I brought it back in. So there you go. Sorry to digress, but
it's all good. Yeah.
It's good. It's good to keep reading. That's for sure. So I understand you have a lot of projects on the go. So we should probably get talking about them right away. And first off the bat is your contribution to the new R4ID anthology called R4ID KLAATU. I wonder if you could talk about your contribution to this year's anthology.
Absolutely. There's definitely a lot of things. Like R4ID is doing a lot of things this year. It's great. It's exciting and kind of stressful, but it's awesome. So R4ID KLAATU, I am continuing my Widdaw story. So basically, I did a project called Widdaw, which is basically a young wizard's tale of questing through the land, trying to find his familiar pet, which basically levels him up as a mage. And kind of we're going on a journey with him as he kind of stumbles into different things and enemies and trials and tribulations. So I started that one off with 6 pages, I think, in R4ID 3, and then I've just added 8 pages to continuing the story in this one. So people who like the first one are going to get pretty much the next 8 pages in the story.
Would you say it's more suspenseful than anything else?
No, it's a fantasy.
Okay.
Fantasies, wizards, warriors, all that kind of fun stuff. It's my baby Tolkien. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's by no means is it a. What I like to think about it is like the way I create is very off the cuff. So this kind of originally, as when I was younger and wanting to do comics and stuff like that, I always gravitated towards wanting to make my own kind of like massive world and all this kind of stuff, and never got around to it because it just seemed so daunting. So my creative process over the years has become very kind of like fly by the seat of your pants, make it up as you go. When I joined Raid and I did number 3 and now into 4, I just kind of took that storytelling style and said, you know what, I'm just going to kind of take bite-sized chunks and let this world kind of evolve as it goes. So I'm having more fun with it. It's less stressful for me.
Cool. And did anyone else help you with this, your contribution to this anthology?
No, I've had some editing in-house in the studio and just basically on my writing. But no, I wrote it and designed it and drew it and colored it and all that kind of stuff. Next time around, I've sworn I'm going to get a colorist.
Okay.
Because that's the part that stresses me out the most.
Is that more time consuming than anything else?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, coloring is not my strength. I'm more of I come from an animation background. So I was very much like an animator's pencil drawer, inker kind of thing. So my pencils and inks are my strength for sure. Color I can get by, but I definitely am not as good as the talent that's out there. And it's also about the amount of time I take to do mine as well. Like when I looked at this last issue, I did the 8 pages, and it pretty much took me twice as long, or if not twice as long, to color it than it did to draw it. So I'm a much faster penciler and inker.
Is there a trust level, you think, too? Like if you're doing the whole thing, you know exactly how it's going to turn out. But if you have to turn it over to someone and you're going, maybe not that color would be good. Like, how does that work? Do you have that level of trust that you could actually give it to someone to sort of finish off for you?
Yeah, I'm pretty much, I didn't used to, but I think I kind of hit my breaking point on this issue because it took so long, and with all the other projects going on nowadays, I just don't have the time to do it. And I feel like there's now 14 pages that I can show a colorist and say, okay, well, this is kind of like, it shows the style, like it's like a cell shaded style. And, here are the basic colors of the main characters, and then, fit something in this mold. And I have faith that they'll be able to do it. No problem. I mean, a good colorist can just raise your work up. So that's what I'm looking for.
Great. Well, wanted to talk a bit about and congratulate you on the success of Forest Folk. I remember we met up, I think it was the Dragon in Guelph. You were out there for an event, right. And you signed my copy, and I want to thank you for that. And it's doing great guns, as they say. And now you have a follow-up to Forest Folk. I wonder if you could talk a bit about that.
Sure. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm still reveling in the success of the Kickstarter. I was so stressed about that volume 1 getting made. And when it did, it was just the greatest feeling ever. So now we're just kind of at the point where we're, going to cons. And you mentioned earlier before the show about looking forward to Toronto Con. And I am too, because it's so much more fun to sit there with, a book that you have that's mine, like it's like, and I'm pushing that and getting to talk to fans, and it's just been great. It's been awesome. I went to Vancouver 2 weeks ago for Fan Expo Vancouver, and had a blast there. So
yeah, how did that go? I was going to ask you, what was the reaction, or what was your reaction when you got out there and seeing all the people?
Yeah, no, it was, like I said, fantastic. As soon as I sat down, one of my favorite events of the con was I sit down, we set up our booth, our table, and the first person that comes up and looks is a man with his kid, and he's just kind of staring down at it, kind of got his fingers on it, and he's looking at it, very pensive look on his face. And I'm like, so I went into my spiel. I said, that's a webcomic I've been doing for the past 6 years, and we've just. And he goes, no, I know. And I was like, oh, excuse me. I think in my head, I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, I think I read this online. So it was just a really cool vibe, because I mean that was the first time I've ever had someone come up to me and say, I've read this, but I didn't know you had a book made of it. Do you know what I mean? It was just because most people learned of it through the Kickstarter, or they're people that, know me or whatnot. Right. So it's just really neat to start getting people showing up that are like saying, oh no, I've read this. Or there was another person that came up, a couple people that said, oh, I did the Kickstarter and I was waiting for you to come because, I wanted to get this, or you just signed or do a sketch or what, it was really awesome. The vibe was very, very cool. And I couldn't have asked for better. We sold a bunch of books, didn't come back. I think we came back with 2 out of the bunch that we took. So
amazing.
Yeah, it was good. So it was a great show.
Yeah. Now, I'm sorry I cut you off. You were about to talk about your follow-up to Forest Folk, and I apologize about
No,
that.
you don't apologize. I ramble, so I mean it's probably my fault. Yeah. So number two, I'm so excited. I can't believe it's already here, but just gonna kind of keep it rolling. And at the end of the month, I believe it's gonna be the 28th of March. Don't quote me on that, but still kind of up in the air. But we do have the landing page up around March 28th. We're launching Volume 2. And it's called
Oh,
Bands and Shenanigans. So yeah, it's another 110 or so strips are going to be in this one, just like the first, but it just continues where the last book left off. Some new, I'm sure we'll get some nice bonus stuff in there. We're still in thought and progress of creating the swag that's going to be on like the exclusive packs and tiers and all that kind of stuff. Like the early bird is going to have something different this time around, and we're thinking because this volume has the whole band. There's a band section in it where Filbert starts up his own band and gets all the forest folk to be members of the band, whether they want to or not. So that was probably about a 6 or 7 part, mini story. So we decided to lean into that, and we're going to be doing some like kind of band merch
okay.
for the Kickstarter, some kind of patches that you can put on your jacket or whatever, or your bag, a band patch, or maybe a band T-shirt or something like that. So we're kind of leaning into the whole Filbert thinks he's a musician for this one. So
Okay. I was going to say, for those not familiar with the characters, how would you describe the overall story to someone?
Sure. Well, it's basically about two main characters, which is where it all started, which is Filbert the Fox. He's a blue fox, and Thomas, the elf. These are two characters that I started the whole series on. They became friends during a little intro story I did in Inktober, and I decided to kind of go on from there. And they're just best buds. Thomas doesn't talk. He's pretty much a mute, and he can draw things with his magic pen, feather in his cap, and things come to life or pop out from the paper when he draws it. And Filbert's quite a boisterous, full of himself, cocky, lovable, not too smart a lot of the times, thinks he's right all the time, that kind of guy. So between the two of them, you've got Thomas being the super sweet one and him being the boisterous one. They just kind of get into trouble, you know what I mean? Or Thomas is always trying to keep him out of trouble, Filbert out of trouble. And then there's just been a bunch of extra characters in the story. That we have a bear called Barry who runs a coffee shop in the forest. Stripes is a red squirrel that got his tail painted by Filbert by accident, and they have a rivalry the whole time. And Benny's the science. He's become the science bunny. He's always spouting the facts, and Filbert can't be bothered with him. So there's a lot of back and forth between these different kind of character types and just kind of jokey stuff. You know what I mean? Having fun with it. Sometimes it gets more serious than others, but usually it's quite lighthearted and full of jokes.
Cool. Good. Well, congrats on that, and looking forward to that new book when it comes out for sure. And you have even another project on the go, and this is with Marvel, I believe. So I wonder if you could talk a wee bit about that one.
Yeah, for sure. So back in, I think they started releasing in like September last year, but the Marvel Unlimited app, the one that you can buy on your phone, it's like behind a paywall. I think it's like $10 a month, and it's got all their back issues. I think there's like they say 20,000 to 22,000 back issues of online of all the comics put onto like this app, and they wanted to do bonus material that's only on the app or exclusive to the app. And so they got in touch with Scotty Young, and Scotty Young got in touch with me, and we did some giant size little Marvel stuff. So I think we did 7. Was it 7 or 8? But they're basically, it's a vertical scrolling strip on your phone, so you read it that way. It's not like Comixology where you kind of flip the page and you get the whole page. This is kind of like a scrolling style, like webtoons or whatnot. So it's Marvel's version of that. And we did 7 or 8 giant size little Marvel. So basically Scotty Young wrote it and I illustrated it. So I had a lot of fun doing that, drawing, the baby Marvel Avengers and, Hulk and all that kind of stuff. And we did, who else was there in there? basically I got to draw tons of characters. Doctor Doom, we did like a villain strip where they're in the villain's treehouse. Doctor Doom has a treehouse, and they're all having a meeting about ruling the world, and they get into a big fight about that. It was just a lot of fun. He's a great writer, Scotty Young, and obviously a great artist as well. So I got to kind of play with the style and morph it into my own, which was really cool. But at the same time, I was really enjoying kind of trying to take as much from Scotty's art style as possible so that it wasn't too different. Yeah, we just had fun doing it. We are slated, I believe, to do the next run, which would be another 8 of them, but it's all scheduling and conflicting and stuff like that with, I believe, Scotty. He's a busy guy, so
sure.
I'm sure we will be doing some more in the future, but apparently the first set went really well.
That's great. Good to hear. Yeah, Scotty has been known for doing variant covers where he does his little marvels.
Yeah.
No matter what issue it might be, they pop up. So it's a good sort of flow, I guess. That's why I reached out to you. Did you have similar type of art styles, or how did that sort of happen?
Yeah, Scotty and I became friends. I don't know, maybe like 6 years ago now or so, 7 years ago. It was actually really cool. He did the forward in my volume 1 Forest Folk, which is really sweet.
It is cool. Yeah, it's really cool.
So anyways, we met I think he listened to a podcast that I was on. I do a film podcast with some friends. It's called Film Junk.
Okay.
And it's been around for a while. I believe it's like one of the longest running film review podcasts on the internet. Like they've been around for like 20 years or something like that. So I just did a podcast on that, and he ended up tweeting at me, and he's like, "Yo, you should have. I can't believe you didn't like Pacific Rim or something like that." And we started talking from there because he I guess heard that I was an artist, and he just looked at my stuff, and we just started talking. And before you know it, we're having Skype hangouts and drawing during the day, and basically doing virtual studio stuff. And he was one of the main actual influences on me kind of getting my head in the game and actually doing Forest Folk in the first place, because I'd spent so many years kind of humming and hawing in between work schedule and I don't have time to do my own thing and blah 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 blah. And at this time he was starting to create I Hate Fairyland, so that's how long ago it was. He was like, I literally was watching him design her, Gert, and he was naming it. Like I was up there at the very beginning when he was doing all that kind of stuff, which was very cool.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of got the bug, when you're around creative people like him and Jake Parker, I believe I was talking to, and we were just kind of like, spitballing ideas and stuff. And that's when I just finished in Inktober that year, where I created this Filbert character and tied it into my Thomas, and mixed that with getting complete Calvin Hobbes collection for Christmas. I just decided to kind of, hey, I can do a one strip kind of thing a week, and that's where this was all born from. So he was like influential in that completely. But as far as the art style stuff, sorry to ramble, he's a cartoonist and I'm a cartoonist, and once as we went on, he saw my Forest Folk, and we have very similar styles of drawing. Right. So he just said for him it was a no-brainer. He said, dude, I want to get you in on this. I don't have time to illustrate it, but I think you could do perfectly. And I ended up meeting the editor, and we hit it off real well. Yeah, the rest is history, as they say. So hopefully going to get in on a second round with that, because I really enjoyed that project. It was fun.
Sure. Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, it sounds like you've been working on a lot of different projects. So I don't know if it's fair to ask you if you have anything else on the go that you can talk about, that you're allowed to talk about.
Well, I did just fill in issue again on that Marvel app. If anyone out there listening has the Marvel Unlimited app, I did a fill-in issue for the Spider-Man. I believe Ryan North wrote a 4-part miniseries on Jack and the Beanstalk, like a parody on Jack and the Beanstalk, and it's Peter and the Beanstalk, I believe.
Oh, wow.
So it's a Spider-Man one. I did issue 2. Jay Fosgate did issue 1. I did issue 2.
Nice.
And I don't know that just released last week, so that was out. So that was a big secret thing I had to kind of crunch on during the month of February. Let's see, what else am I working on? Oh, I'm doing a comic for Scotty, actually, for his mailing list. He has his own the Tales of Fairyland, behind the scenes of Fairyland, or whatever it's called, and it's he does it through his mailing list. It's basically bonus material.
Oh, okay.
So he's getting a bunch of people to illustrate comics, like 5 to 10 pages of a comic, doing what they want with with Fairyland characters. So he asked me to do it, so I'm definitely jumping on board for that. So I need to get that. I wrote it, and so I'm just I have to start doing layouts on that. So that's coming up soon, as well as all of this con and Kickstarter stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
Lots of fun. Lots of fun.
Lots of
So,
fun.
with all the stuff that you have going on, where do you recommend that people go online to find out about your current and your future projects?
Ooh, that's a good point. I would say just go to my website, daxgordine.com. And I just like basically have my portfolio there. I've got links to the webcomic. I just put in a link today for the Kickstarter. So basically, it'll take you straight to the landing page, which is what I'm going to start doing for any type of interview I'm doing. Just kind of point people at my website, and then they can just one click go straight to the Kickstarter page. I would say that. I mean, my Instagram's on there too. I post most of my stuff to Instagram and Facebook. So if you just look up D__GEE on Instagram and Twitter, you can find me there. Dax Gordine on Facebook, or like I said, you can just go to my .com, my daxgordine.com, and it's all linked in there as well. So
Nice. Well, Dax, those are all the questions I have for you. But is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
well, I'm hoping that people just keep loving the forest folk, and like I said, if they could, anyone who's interested in Volume 2, go to my website and click on the forest folk link and hit the notify button. It helps us to click when people click notify because it drives up the algorithm, and at the same time you'll get notified as soon as it goes live. So anyone who's interested in Volume 2 of that can go to my website and click on the forest folk link up at the top.
Thanks to Dax for the chat. You can discover more about Dax on Twitter and Instagram at D__GEE and online at daxgordine.com. The weekly webcomic Forest Folk is available at forestfolkcomic.com. And you can discover Forest Folk Volume 2 Bands and Shenanigans on Kickstarter. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And please leave a good rating. Also check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website and follow along on Twitter at True North Comics. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel. Please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks again for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2022.